I'm a feminist, but when I was backstage here at the Sydney Opera House, I was so overwhelmed to be here, I sent my husband, Tom Selinsky, a message saying, I feel teary, and autocorrect changed it to, I feel ready. And I thought, wow, autocorrect is a feminist. I always thought of autocorrect as a white, straight, cis man because all it does is change things because it thinks it knows better when it ducking well doesn't. Doesn't ducking know?
But it can't be because it never lets you write the word
that you wanted to write,
which is always F-U-C-K. Never lets you use it.
It doesn't like it. It's
Or maybe it just doesn't like women using it.
Oh, do you think that? Do you think it lets men use it? I'd never thought of that.
I'm a feminist, but I am absolutely obsessed. I feel like this is a confessional, actually.
It is a bit like a confessional.
I'm absolutely obsessed with a dating show on TV that's on now that is basically about arranged marriages. It's called Married at First Sight. Please tell me I'm not alone in this room. All right, and I even try to justify it to my friends and people around me at my work that watching a show like this in these current Me Too times, that this is a way we can witness the bad behaviour that we're calling out. So I am the worst. I am justifying my, essentially, a soap opera addiction and a horrific premise for a television show by using feminism.
I'm a feminist, but when I was a kid, I had a crush on Craig McLachlan and Rolf Harris. And a bit of a soft spot for Don Burke. If you're listening internationally, Google it. It wasn't a crush on Don Burke. It was more like, oh, he's like your uncle. So I didn't see it coming. I'm sorry. I was naive. Who saw it coming? He was so lovely to the vegetables.
So lovely to the vegetables.
So lovely to the vegetables.
Have you seen that YouTube footage? Oh, my goodness.
Too lovely.
Okay, I'm a feminist, but as a short person, I will never wear a flat shoe, even though I'm playing right into the hands of the patriarchy. Ironically, flats are my Achilles heel.
I'm a feminist, but last week I had a dream I was talking to Virginia Woolf, and she was trying to tell me something important that women needed to know, but it was in French, and I couldn't understand it. And I tried to write it down so I could look it up later, and so I was writing, and when I looked up from the paper, she turned into Kanye West. Which my unconscious did. But to be honest, the Virginia Woolf was the Nicole Kidman Virginia Woolf with the prosthetic nose from The Hours. So I don't know that she had that much to tell us anyway. But I did feel like portal to proto-feminism, early 20th century modernist feminism, and I thought I should bring the message back. No. It was just Kanye there talking about gold diggers.
Well, this leads me to my next one. I'm a feminist, but one of my favourite song lyrics is, if you're having girl problems, I feel bad for you, son. I've got 99 problems, but a bitch ain't one. Hit me. No one else?
Live from the Sydney Opera House, we present the Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Frances-White, guest co-host Myf Warhurst, and a very special guest, Tracey Spicer, talking about taking a risk. This is The Guilty Feminist, the podcast in which we explore our noble goals as 21st century feminists and the hypocrisies and insecurities which undermine them. Have you had a guilty week or a feminist week, Myf?
I think every week's a feminist week. Yeah.
You?
Guilty and feminist. Mostly feminist, I think. Because, coming on here tonight and thinking about what I feel guilty about, it was actually quite hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did you find it hard to do the I'm a feminist buts because you're such a good feminist?
I feel
You've
like...
alienated half the crowd. always know who the guilty crowd is and who the feminist crowd is. I mean, we're all guilty and feminist. That's the point of the show.
That is the point.
But I do feel quite strongly that some people lean heavily into one camp or another.
I do feel like, though, times have changed so much that more and more I'm very much more aware of what I do every day as opposed to, say, 10 years ago when I was probably an appalling feminist. And I think that's...
We've all upped our game in the last few years, let's be honest.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
Society's demanded it.
However, I do need to discuss something that's very important with you, Deborah. Cameron Daddo.
Oh, yes. That's his name, isn't it? I did get the name right.
You did get his name right.
The one that used to do Perfect Match.
Yes.
My Australian references are a bit outdated, I'm not going to lie to you guys. I haven't lived here for a long time.
I must say, I haven't thought about him since about 1992, but I did love him. And I know he's on very successful American TV shows now, but I was also desperately in love with his partner at the time, who was the Dolly cover girl as well. She was like the Alison Bray, that's correct. So for me, they were like, well, we can't even say it anymore, Jennifer Aniston and Justin Theroux of our times, even though that's over as well.
That is over, yeah, that's over. But let's not be sad, because it's not sad when women are single. It's not, though, it's not. We always go, oh, poor Jen. It's like, do you know what? She's fine. She
is so fine.
She's in work. She's on more than the minimum wage, substantially. She's got people who love her, and she's got 12 houses.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I love that Jen exists, and she keeps basically saying, no, I will not answer these questions, whether it comes to her pregnancy or whatever, you know, the 75 million times.
She's just never been pregnant. Sometimes she goes running and her stomach is not actually concave. That's what happens. If her stomach is not concave, if there's not a significant interior dip, immediately the press say she's pregnant, and then she goes, still not pregnant.
But I take her as like inspiration because I'm, you know, in my 40s and I've had a few goes, and let's be honest, they haven't worked out that well. So more and more I feel like women are getting to a point whereby it's absolutely fine. And you know what? Sometimes a better option to be single.
Just give us a cheer if you think it's
easier.
It's a better option to be single.
Come on!
Now, how many of you who cheered are with someone?
Exactly.
Yes, it was like a cry for freedom. That was a cry for help. So today we're talking about taking a risk. We're talking about being risk takers as feminists, because as feminists we need sometimes to take a risk. The feminist movement seems to be taking all sorts of risks at the moment. Me Too, Time's Up. Every time we leave the house, to be honest, we have to fight the patriarchy. I feel we need to bring back suffragitsu. Seriously, did you know that? The suffragettes learnt jiu-jitsu. Seriously, in the early 1900s, the suffragettes, in their long dresses with their big hats, took martial arts to fend off the police because they were being attacked and anybody who wanted to attack them. When we were in London, Jessica Foster-Hughes suggested we take up Me Too Kwando.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I feel like we do need some kind of martial art in order to be truly risk-taking. Do you take risks at the moment? Or have you recently taken a risk?
Well, I feel like going to work every day is a bit of a risk at the moment because I've just started a new job which requires me to talk on radio solidly for an hour and a half every single day, which doesn't sound too terrifying if you've been doing it for 20 years like I have, but for some reason, it's terrifying. I've been going to work every day going, what if this falls over? What if I run out of things to say? What if I muck it up so badly that the whole thing just falls apart while
you just stop talking on radio. You just go, I'm done. I have nothing to say, and you just stop.
Yes, exactly. But it's actually really liberating every day to feel that terrified. And I'm sure 6 more weeks down the track it'll be equally fine. But at the moment, every day is like, oh my God, I'm on a cliff and I feel like I'm about to fall. And I hope that you can't hear it, by the way, when you're listening, wherever you are, in your car or you're at home. But it feels like you're about to fall off a cliff every single day, and I'm really enjoying it in a really perverse way, but also at the same time it's terrifying.
Do you think if you were a straight white cis man who had been broadcasting as long as you had, and you've had a long television career as well, do you think a man in your position would be going, oh God, what if I suddenly forget how to radio?
No.
No,
I don't.
it's
That's
so
the
weird,
thing.
isn't
And
it?
every day I would love to walk into a room with the confidence of a middle-aged white guy. And I tell myself that every day. But still, it seems to be a lot of outside forces that somehow infect my thinking that maybe I'll mess it up or maybe I'm not good enough. And I'm really even surprised by myself at this stage in my career that I feel that frightened.
Do you think it's because women are told that you don't only get so many chances, and over 40 you only get one chance? I mean, there's a diminishing returns for women, let's be clear. I mean, once you've either had a baby or could have had one, there's a limit in their minds to how long you can continue.
Definitely, I do think so. And it's been really good to do this because I also am working really hard to stop thinking about life in those definitive terms. I haven't had a successful long-term relationship that means you end up with all those normal things. So why should I think anything different about the way I live my career? Why is it only good to a certain point?
So what you're saying is, if you haven't found a man who's good enough that you're prepared to commit to him forever, why should you find a job?
Exactly. You should always keep moving forward. It doesn't come to an end. And
okay, so Tom Zielinski, who edits this podcast, is my husband. If you're listening, Tom, it's over. Myf's just convinced me to move forward. I really need to take a risk on this relationship. So it's been great. Please don't
Tom, I'm sorry.
Please don't stop producing the podcast. You can tell him yourself he listens to every second of this many times to get the edit right. So, you know.
He is a good man.
Yeah, no.
Maybe you should keep him around.
I mean, do you want him? I mean, that's... just to keep it fresh and keep it in the family, Myf.
Exactly.
Listen, he's such a good man, I wouldn't want him going to waste. If I did give him up, I would offer him round to a close circle of friends. I mean, I've got top 6 friends that I'd go, you can have a go. I mean, he cooks, he produces your work.
He's got cats?
He's got 2... Well, they're our cats, I think.
Okay.
He'd get one in the divorce. I'd get the other one. I'd get the good one. To be honest, Mimi shows affection by leaving the room.
Please welcome to the stage Deborah Frances-White, ladies and gentlemen.
Hello. So I took a risk recently. I am writing a book called The Guilty Feminist, which is exciting. When they asked me to write the book, I was like, of course, I'd love to write a book. Who doesn't want to write a book? It's brilliant. Lovely to get to write a book. Don't write a book, guys. Definitely. It's the worst thing in the world. It's so long. It's so hard and so long. I wrote to my editor the following email that said, it's both 4 a.m. and 4 p.m. because I was jet lagged and it felt like both times. And this book will never end. Books never end. You must have known that. You are a book editor. Why did you not tell me that books never end? Can you sell this email to somebody? This is writing. Does someone want to publish this? Please sell this email. It's all I've got. Fortunately, she found that funny and didn't genuinely think I was having a breakdown and cancel the publication. But when I had a lot less... I mean, this is rewrites now that I'm doing. I've sort of finished now, really. But at this point, I really only had 2/3 of the book, and it was January, and I needed a whole book. And so my friend said, do you know what I do when I need to focus? I go away to this juice retreat up a Spanish mountain. Because if you only drink juice, they just make juice for you. You drink juice 4 times a day, soup in the evening, 3 juices and a soup. And you get all of this energy, and it's really, truly amazing. That's what she said, and that's what she promised, and that's what she said. She said it's amazing, and you will get laser focus. She said it's incredible. You get all this energy, and I was like, really? Because I'm a food liker. And she said, no, honestly, Deborah, you've got to go up the mountain and only have the juice. And I promise you, I absolutely promise you, you will absolutely be able to finish the book. And I had so much book to finish and so little time to finish it in. I was convinced by this, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to go up the Spanish mountain and commit to the juice in order that I come down the mountain like Moses with some wisdom. And while I was there, I kept a diary, which I'm now going to read to you. Day 1, I arrive at the mountain. The place is large and calm. I meet the other juice retreaters. We have soup before bed. We all agree it would be better with bread. But it's fine. I am not hungry and don't intend to be. I think this is easy, and it turns out I am the kind of person who will enjoy a week-long juice retreat. Day 2. I wake up in time for the first juice of the day. It's important to get up because if you miss your juice window, there's no more juice for hours. I drink the juice. Selinsky, my husband, has been up for hours. He's got up early to go on an official organised juice retreat walk in the mountains. And then, all he has is juice. He's fine. Why isn't he starving? He should be starving and fainting. How is he fine? We gather for the induction. A perky woman called Tamara stands up the front. Now, your friends all think you're mad coming on this, don't they? They've probably said you're mad and it's dangerous just to drink juice. No, I think none of my friends have said that. They've said, I wish I was coming, or what a great start to January. I wish I had your willpower. This sounds great. We shake our heads. Tamara looks at us. They did say that. I know they did, she insists. And if they didn't say it to your face, they said it behind your back. I feel paranoid now. If you were on Instagram drinking and doing drugs in Las Vegas, they'd say you were living the life. But you come up a mountain to drink juice and they say you're mad. They say you're brainwashed. Who takes drugs on Instagram, I think? Don't the police look there? Tamara continues. You come to put good nutrients in your body and they say you're mad, you're brainwashed, you've joined a cult. Do they? Who's saying that? What? When? Should I send my friends a reassuring email to let them know I'm okay? Lunchtime, day 2. I am overcome with a crippling headache. Not only can I not write, I cannot hold my head up or see light. Tamara assures me this is caffeine withdrawal headache and will pass. I assure Tamara it is everything withdrawal headache. And what if it doesn't? She suggests napping in a hanging womb basket, which puts the body automatically into the fetal position. She also suggests an enema. I try the hanging womb basket and nap for 30 minutes, waking 5 hours later. No book written. Night time. We have soup, but no bread. Where is the bread? I need bread. What is soup without bread? It is hunger, it is despair, it is bleakness. Tamara tells me I can have one official juice retreat power bar made of dates and nuts without ruining it. I have 3. I sleep badly, waking up hungry and headachy. This risk has not paid off. I see now there can be no book writing without food eating. And there is no food eating up this mountain and no way off. I feel more like Gilligan than Ginger. Day 3. Selinsky goes off for another early group walk. How are his legs working? This confirms my suspicion that my husband is not a man but a Black Mirror app. He comes back refreshed and enjoys his juice. He reports no change in his body and that he is not hungry. I receive my first contact from the outside world. A message from Ned Sedgwick, my sidekick on Global Pillage. He has an admin question. I tell him of my painful hunger and ask if there is any way to send a sandwich up a Spanish mountain. I tell him of my inability to focus and Tom's ability to go on long walks with no apparent difficulty. Deborah, he writes back, he is walking to McDonald's. That is why he is fine. No, I say, he's going with a group led by Tamara. This corruption goes all the way to the top, he replies. After another afternoon in the womb basket, moaning, Tamara assures me the juice high and superhuman focus will kick in sometime in the next few days. It needs to kick in now, I reply. I have a book to write. That night we watched Dr. Foster, a BBC drama about a doctor whose husband is cheating on her. There are more luscious dinner parties in this show than are possible to imagine. Dr. Foster and her cheating husband constantly eat pasta dripping with tomato sauce and drink crisp white wine from oversized glasses. I am sure there is tiramisu in more than one scene. I have 2.5 power bars and then the other half of the third. I sleep. Day 3. I wake up at 7 a.m. More alive and awake than I've ever been in my life. I feel like a meerkat on amphetamines. I jump out of bed and go down to the gym because I need to run for half an hour before I have my juice. I sit down at the laptop and type like Jack Nicholson in The Shining, only every sentence is different. Day 3 to 5, no diary because I only write the book. Day 6, our final session with Tamara is a make your own juice session. She tells us that when we go home, we will need to make and drink our own juice all the time and suggests various ways of replacing meals and food with refreshing juice. I am sold. Juice is cocaine for healthy people. I will juice every day, I think. When you go back home, all your friends will say you've been brainwashed and are in a cult. The best way to convince them that you're not is to have a party and get them to try the juice. I think if the theme of your party is I'm not in a cult, then passing out Kool-Aid is probably not the way forward. At your party, you should show these videos of why juicing is good for you and get them to sign up for a retreat, she says. She passes out branded towels with a logo that says, "Juice! You could give this as a prize at your party," she says. This will not help with the narrative about not being brainwashed, I think. I leave the juice mountain full of energy and vigour with a complete book ready to be published. Turns out it wasn't ready. It was like 5 rewrites. My risk paid off, and I am not in a cult. I am not in a cult. I am not in a cult. I come home, I remember bread, I forget juice. Thank you.
Hello, Guilty Feminists. It's Deborah Frances-White. I wanted to let you know that if you are in London or can get to London, this next Saturday night coming up, June 23rd, we have a very special show at the Old Vic Theatre. Our profits are going to Amnesty. The theme of the show is Mothers and Daughters. My guest co-host is Sindhu V, and our guests are Juliet Stevenson, an actress you'll know from Truly, Madly, Deeply, Bend It Like Beckham, Emma, Being Julia, and an extraordinary amount of films and television shows, is appearing with her daughter, Rosalind Brodie, who's taking an amazing theatre show to Edinburgh about mothers and daughters. They are also ambassadors for Amnesty. It's going to be an incredible night. Please get tickets now while you can. Also coming up, if you're going to Latitude or can get tickets for that festival, Suffrageddon will be on in the theatre tent. I'll be appearing there with it at 1 p.m. on Friday the 13th of July. My Mum's a Twat, an amazing play, will be performed at 4:30 at the Faraway Forest, and afterwards I will be chairing a discussion about it, so come along to both of those. If you're not able to come to Latitude on Friday the 13th of July, there will be a protest in London about Donald Trump's visit, so please go along to that if you're not at Latitude. On the 15th of July at Regent's Park Theatre, there are still a handful of tickets for The Guilty Feminist. Grab those while you can. Also, my book, The Guilty Feminist, is now on pre-order. Go to guiltyfeminist.com and click the link for the book, and you will be able to pre-order one from Waterstones. And you could come to an event. So the event will be like a show. It'll be like a discussion and a Q&A. There'll also be a reading from the book, and I'll also be doing a meet and greet and signing your book if you would like me to. All the book events are in September, and they start in London on the 2nd of September, then go to Birmingham on the 4th, Liverpool on the 5th, Manchester on the 7th, Leeds on the 8th, Glasgow on the 9th, and Brighton on the 13th. So if you are in or near any of those places, grab tickets now. I would really, really love to meet you and, of course, sign your book. Finally, The Guilty Feminist is starting events in Calais. If you have a skill that you could teach or perform We would love to hear from you. So if you'd be happy to go out to Calais and teach yoga to the volunteers, or possibly even at the Women's Centre or the Men's Drop-In Centre to refugees, if you would be able to go out and perform at an open mic night for the volunteers, maybe run a little workshop, maybe you could play the guitar, maybe you've got a band, maybe you can do storytelling, comedy, anything like that, and you would be happy to do an event, then please email calais@guiltyfeminist.com and John Call or Anna will get back to you. We're looking at starting a full program of events in Calais over the coming months and having regular performances and also yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi, meditation classes. So please get in touch if you have any of those skills, or if you can't do any of those things, but you would be happy to drive some people there, same thing. If you just want to volunteer in the regular way, go to helprefugees.org. You can do that right now, and you can go over any time, or you can donate tents, sleeping bags, or money, or send donations. But if you would like to get involved in the events specifically or teaching, then please email calais@guiltyfeminist.com and someone will get back to you. Thanks so much for listening. Back to the podcast.
Our guest today is somewhat of a legend in the Australian Me Too movement. She also has a viral TED Talk and is one of the most inspirational people at this incredible festival. Please put your hands together for the wonderful Tracey Spicer! So, Tracey, have you done any juicing? You ever been up a mountain to do something like that?
And I won't be doing it after that story.
No, it's true.
Deborah?
It's true. No, seriously, though, if you have a book to write, don't expect to write anything for the first 2 days, but after that, it does turn you into something of a... I think speed freak is the right thing to say. Speed freak. It did work. The risk did pay off.
And from what I can gather, though, everything comes out. It's not just the writing. It's like, what a full cleanse.
I can't talk about scatology, Myf. I don't know if you know that, but I have a genuine phobia of it. It's very triggering for me.
I must admit I'm here as a guilty feminist. This is the first time I've worn nail polish in 15 years.
Wow.
And the reason I'm wearing it, my 11-year-old daughter down there put it on, is because a friend sent it to me in suffragette purple for the festival, and the colour is called Good Girl Gone Bad.
Oh. Nice. Is that your I'm a feminist part?
Yes, I'm guilty about the nail polish, but Good Girl Gone Bad I'm very proud of.
Yeah. I bought a lipstick because it was called Activist. Actually, last time I was in Melbourne, I went shopping with my sister and I bought some red patent leather, sort of punky boots, because I wanted to go on marches. And I thought, I need to get... like you get an actor, you get into the character. I sort of felt like, no, I'm going to feel more punk and more like, yeah, the system, overthrow the system if I'm in punk boots. And my sister said, you can't buy capitalist boots in order to overthrow the system. And I was like, well, I have. So... And I've overthrown the system with them a number of times since I bought them. I guarantee the system is not entirely overthrown, but I've given it a good kick.
Small steps, small steps.
Small steps in the punk boots. So, Tracey, you are one of the forerunners of the Australian Me Too movement. And if you're here today and you're not sure what that is, or you're listening internationally, do you want to sum up what the Me Too movement and the Australian Me Too movement is?
It could be described simply as how my colleague Kate McClymont at Fairfax describes me as Australia's official sex pest reporter.
Wow.
It's something one dreams of as a child.
Yes. Presumably, as a small child, you thought, I hope one day I'll be the official sex pest reporter. So you've uncovered or contributed to the uncovering of various people. Don Burke, from Burke's Backyard. Did everyone know?
Everyone in the industry knew about Don Burke. It was an open secret. But what happened was, has anyone heard about the missing stair phenomenon here?
No.
If you've got a missing stair in a house, there's a structural fault. So really you fix the stair to make sure the structure's sound. In a workplace, it's the same. If there's someone who is a serial sexual harasser, you get rid of them, right? But no, with people like Don Burke, workplaces just have a whispering campaign to work around them. So instead of fixing the structural fault in the workplace, they just work around the person. For example, there'd be a chaperone if young women were working with Don Burke. But everyone knew and no one ever punished him for it.
I remember Rolf Harris, because he was working in the UK. I remember it just being said, oh, he's handsy. That's how he was described.
Yeah.
And they're like, if you go into a radio station with Rolf Harris, just be aware he will grab you in places you don't wish to be grabbed. So exactly, work around that. So, back out of the room, circle him, behave like a shark, I suppose. If Rolf Harris were to encounter a shark, what would the shark do? Do that was the sort of, you're like, I shouldn't really have to be sort of circling and reverse parking in order to stop somebody touching me in the workplace, uninvited and clearly unconsensually.
So what's going on here? Was it management, say at Channel 9, that's enabling somebody like Don Burke? Or I heard also he was sort of outsourced in a way. He was in charge of his own production company and put to the side, so therefore there was very little control of what he was doing and maybe very little blame placed back on the media organisation.
And very little legal liability on behalf of Nine. A couple of things are going on here. The perpetrators are protected and in fact promoted, similar to what we've seen with churches moving on a priest to a different parish. The survivors
Was he moved on to more backyards?
He
Is
was
that what
moved
happened?
on to different types of plants, So there's that, but there's also that code of mateship. So there are a lot of blokes that worked with him that found him to be a bully, but didn't want to speak out against him because it's like, you don't talk out against one of your mates, you don't talk out against another bloke, and that's got to end.
You know what I don't get though? How can you be mates with someone who does that? They talk about this code, but I think something's wrong with your code if you think that it's okay to
I think it's
condone that sort of behaviour.
I think especially when people have the extra credibility of fame, a lot of people don't want to distance themselves from that, or they think their employment opportunities will be lessened. And if the whole culture is one where everyone knows and no one does anything, it's endorsed. You put out a tweet saying you were investigating. What was the response on Twitter from that?
So far, and I sent it out in the middle of October, I've had more than 1,600 women disclose their experiences of sexual harassment and indecent assault. And a couple of men, some really interesting disclosures from men. One man called up and said, so do you reckon you can fix this in 5 years? And I said, I'll give it a crack. Why? He said, because my daughter's 14 and she's going into the workforce and I don't want her to be groped and grabbed the same way as I used to grope and grab women in the workplace. It's been interesting.
I mean, that's an entitlement, isn't it? That's an entitlement. Could it stop now? Because I'm about done. And somebody I invented is coming into the workplace. That seems like a good enough time to end it. Call time. Sure, time's up now. How extraordinary. Have men responded in other ways? What else have they said?
There have been some wonderful men who've been supportive, telling us stories and all of that kind of stuff. There's actually been a lot of men who've been sexually harassed in the workplace too. But like the domestic violence situation, the offenders are usually men. It's very rare for a woman to sexually abuse or sexually harass a younger man. And that's to do with entitlement and the fact that very few women are in positions of power over men in the workplace.
And do you think that's it? Like, you're looking at MPs now, aren't you? Yeah. How is that going where you're actually focusing on Canberra? Because Australia has really strong defamation laws, doesn't it?
The toughest in the world. So it's really difficult, even if you've got all the facts, and obviously it changes from state to state, but if you damage someone's reputation, you can still cop a defamation suit, even if everything you've said is truthful.
I was going to ask, it's such a risk for you personally to be doing this. How do you get past that fear in order to keep doing it? Is it because of what you're doing for women in general and the men that have been abused?
I'm fortunate to have some wonderful people in my life, including my husband, because when I came home after I sent out the tweet, I said, I think I'm going to have to investigate people who are sexually harassing others in the workplace. And he said, are we going to lose our house? And I said, look, there is a risk with Australia's defamation laws and lack of First Amendment protection like they do in the US. And he thought about it for a couple of days and he said, OK, let's do it.
Wow.
And that's awesome. So that's why it's really important to have male allies.
Some men are allies and some men get it. that women should not, just in order to do their job or go out into the world, have to deal with this, have to constantly live in fear of it. And it grinds you down. I think just always knowing it's there, even if you are sort of circling it and you know, oh, well, there's going to be a chaperone, there's this low-level tension all the time in women's lives where we have to be extra careful and we have to be seen never to be encouraging anything or, oh, did you lead him on? So it is something that we just have to eradicate. We have to for the next generation.
Yeah, it has to stop.
Thanks for potentially losing your house.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
How likely are you to be sued, do you think? Or do they tend to come after the paper?
Look, it's fortunate. I have protection with the media organisations that I'm writing for. But it's interesting what you spoke about, that low-level tension and fear that women live with and we become accustomed to. Every single woman who's contacted me, the first thing she says is, I feel so ashamed. And that can be anything. It can be from, did I do something subliminally that he read as me leading him on? Or I complained to the manager, but I never went to the police. I feel so ashamed. So part of this Me Too movement, the exciting part is, yes, women are taking risks by speaking out, but they are being believed. And that is tremendous. That will change everything.
Yeah, and the architecture will change because men now feel they can support and they can come out and the structures will not always support the more powerful. What needs to change with the defamation laws in this country to make it more workable? Because we know that allegedly Craig McLachlan is implicated and we can only say allegedly and we must keep saying it in every sentence.
Allegedly.
Because I have a flat too and allegedly Craig McLachlan allegedly is going to sue people. Allegedly, yes. We need to change the defamation laws because at the moment they protect the rich and the powerful. And I'll give you a really concrete example of that. I wrote my book, The Good Girl Stripped Bare. It came out last year. I named some media offenders in that. And one of them was a really senior executive at a television network who groped me on the bum at a Christmas party. The book went through 2 lawyers and both of them said, you cannot say this about him. I said, he is a repeat offender who has molested hundreds of people across the network over 20 or 30 years. They said, yes, but he is rich and he is litigious, so we are taking his name out. And that is where it really works to protect the perpetrators.
So it's easier to let these people go than it is to actually take action. That's so distressing, isn't it?
So MPs, the politicians of Australia, we definitely won't put this on the podcast. Who are they? We just want to know.
Yeah.
Which MPs?
Sister, this is not the first time at this particular rodeo for me, so I won't be mentioning any names. But there's something problematic that's happening in the political space. I'm getting phone calls from MPs of the right saying, oh, that guy of the left is a serial offender. And I'm getting guys from the left calling up going, that guy from the right, they call him the octopus.
So how do you tell the difference then between somebody who's genuinely motivated and somebody who's actually got a bone to pick with somebody or wants to put them in a position where they make their lives very difficult?
That's what we're grappling with at the moment because it's got to be watertight. Like with Don Burke, we worked for 6 to 8 weeks with a team of 12 to 14 people. We had not only the 4 or 5 women who went on air and on the record, we had dozens. We probably had about 50 or 60 others.
50 or 60? When did
who
Don Burke get time to do his job? 50 or 60? God, was he really watering those roses? Or was he... That's extraordinary. 50 or 60? Wow.
So with politics, we're probably going to have to take longer to take the hidden agenda out of it.
Right, because sometimes they're point scoring. But do you think they point score and go after someone who is known to do it, but they think, well, if you're going to take out one of ours, we'll take out one of yours?
Well, to use a garden analogy, they're probably choosing the low-hanging fruit first, yes.
Pruning, yeah. So if someone from the Liberal Party rings you up and says, oh, there's a guy in Labour, you should go after him, and then someone from the Labour Party rings up and goes, they put one of us in the hospital, we'll put one of theirs in the morgue. Sort of mafia style. You have to investigate every single claim.
Oh, definitely, and that's why it takes so long. And then you've got the crossbenchers. So the crossbenchers are approaching us, and you've got to look at how the House is balanced at the moment. So it's become highly political and very toxic.
Well, in this time of what's been happening with Barnaby Joyce as well, how much do people know about all of these figures? Will it be a surprise? Will it be like Don Burke, no surprises to everybody that works in Canberra? Or will it be a surprise when it comes to some of those figures?
Some will be a surprise and some not. The Barnaby Joyce one is a really interesting case because a lot of journalists knew about this relationship but decided not to run the story because it was a consensual relationship. Now with what Monica Lewinsky's come out with, there's a really nuanced discussion about consent. Men in power, younger women with less power. Is it really consensual, or does it feed into this whole narrative of sexual harassment not by women's choice?
So what's next, do you think? What's after the Me Too movement? Because we're making real headway here and something's really changing. But where do you think feminism is going now?
Time's Up is really exciting, and we're about to launch something in 2 weeks. It's not called Time's Up because of copyright issues, but I'm working with a wonderful collective of women where it's going to be really broad because storytelling's important, but storytelling puts women at risk. Look at Christy Whelan-Brown after speaking out about Craig. She's been trolled mercilessly and relentlessly. So storytelling has a part, but I think we really need to contact our MPs and get them to change legislation. Contact business leaders and say, what policies do you have in place for sexual harassment? This is not good enough. Get a fighting fund for women who can't afford it because it's costly and very few payouts are issued. So we need to look to the next generation, education in schools, and make this a much broader movement.
And also answer the question, why didn't they come out before? They didn't come out before because when they did come out, they weren't believed. They went to the boss, they went to the head of production, and they were moved on or they were edged out, things got awkward, and they always protected the very famous and influential man. And sometimes they did a payout, and as the woman was not going to get justice, and all she was going to get was the money, and she was not able to work with him again, she would take the money to live on because that's all she was going to get. Do you think some women will now start transgressing their NDAs, their non-disclosure agreements?
I have been for 13 years, so I think that I would recommend that women do that.
Did you have a non-disclosure agreement?
I did, after being sidelined and then sacked after returning from maternity leave. There's a huge international discussion at the moment about whether confidentiality agreements are actually another way of crushing women. So I think we'll see not only women breaching those agreements, but organisations being forced to not do those agreements in the first place. A lot of my friends are lawyers who work in this space, and they actually feel really ashamed about encouraging women to sign these confidentiality agreements in the past because they have been a way of silencing women.
So do you think the age of confidentiality will be over and people will just have to behave better?
Let's hope so.
Because we could make the men sign an agreement that they won't touch anyone who doesn't want to be touched. Like that. What an idea. Yeah.
It is that simple, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Instead of,
simple.
oh, can you sign this and not say anything if someone breaks the law? Maybe, or we all don't break the law.
Yeah, just behave yourself.
And make better laws that protect victims and protect people who are being taken advantage of. And of course, we always have to remember as well that this is, the high-profile cases are with famous people and with people who work in entertainment industry or politics. And sometimes the women in those industries are being exploited who are on, much, much, much lower wages than Don Burke. Everyone was on much lower wages than Don Burke, let's be clear. But same in Canberra, there'll be assistants and people who were on nearly nothing. But in all of those industries, there is a sort of glamour and a protection that there isn't in the food service industry, for example.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And this is where the Time's Up Australia movement will go, using the power and profile of women in the media and entertainment industry to raise the funds to help women in the lowest paid industries. Because when you think about retail and hospitality, insecure work, young women working there, that's who we've got to help.
Is that the end goal for something like you're doing, to make money in order to be able to fund more programs and more of these investigations? Is that the aim?
Well, more support for women in low-paid industries so they can take legal action or, if they want to go to the media, they can. That's not the main aim, certainly. To get them counselling is the first step because counselling is really, really difficult to come by when you're right in the middle of these things. Also, education programs on consent for the next generation so they know, for boys and girls, a lot of talk about educating girls, but we need to educate boys not to do this stuff.
Well, it's coming out in charities as well now, like organisations like Oxfam and the just extraordinary things, sexual assault of vulnerable women as well. It came out recently that women were being asked to exchange sex for aid in, just terrible things. And you just think, if even men who work for charities, what's wrong with our society? Why is this so endemic in every industry? What is wrong with our society?
I hate to tell you, but charities are some of the worst because women won't go on the record about it because they believe in the greater good. They say this man's doing wonderful stuff in, say, the anti-poverty space or the helping asylum seekers space or whatever it is, and we don't want to damage or taint the cause, so we will just put up with this in the workplace. And that's terrible. So you see it happening in all workplaces where there's a lot of men in positions of power and a lot of women in low-paid, low-profile, low-power roles.
It's such a difficult time right now because there's so much negativity and it feels so heavy every day. It's almost like, what horror story are we going to hear next? Do you feel like there is a turning point on the way?
Oh, yeah. The turning point's now. We're at a seminal moment in history. I did a session this afternoon with Tirana Burke, who started the Me Too movement in 2007, all those years ago. And she spoke about how this movement's about joy. She's absolutely right, because every woman who's disclosed to me, and I've said to her, actually, you're not the first person who's disclosed about this particular fellow. They've said, oh my goodness, I feel like such a weight has been lifted because of the gaslighting that goes on over the years. They say, oh my goodness, I feel amazing, the fact that they have survived this, they can talk about it. It's incredibly cathartic. So I think there is great positivity to come out of this too.
I feel the next generation coming up also won't accept it.
Yeah.
I think they've seen this. This has been in the news. And I think women who are now girls, teenagers and girls, will just say absolutely not, and they will find ways to structurally support each other. And also the next generation of young men, I see how they respond. I went to a university recently in the UK, and the young men coming up going, I love your podcast, I'm such a fan. And I'm like, really? Like, you're an 18-year-old man? And they're like, oh, I just love it so much, and I learned so much from it. And I'm like, wow, this is really exciting. So I feel this next generation will save us if we can get the planet into their hands.
That's the problem,
Genuinely,
isn't it?
though.
We've got to take
Genuinely.
it mainly out of a man with very tiny hands right now, I think.
Please follow The Guilty Feminist on all of your social medias. Rate, review and subscribe. Give it however many stars you like, as long as it's 5. And it helps other people find the podcast. Do you have anything to plug, Myf?
Anything to plug? Goodness me, that radio show that I told you I'm terrified about every single day. No.
Tune in to hear Myf be frightened, but only for 6 more weeks.
Only for 6
and then
more
she'll
weeks and then
sail
I'll be
in.
fine, I promise,
Yeah.
I promise.
What's your radio show called?
Well, it's just called me, Myf Warhurst, which is super weird. I don't even have anything.
Me, Myf Warhurst.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Where can we listen to it?
ABC, local radio all around the country, 12:30 until 2.
Oh, so tune into ABC Local, but wherever you are, Myf is local to you. That's not how local radio works, Myf.
No,
that's
I
how
know.
national radio works.
I know, and that's why it's also terrifying, because I'm a national program on a local radio.
It's hard to
network.
drop in local references, isn't it?
It is. I can't do time calls. I can't do,
Yeah.
It's busy down the main street of such and such today.
Yeah.
And,
Sue's dress
the sun
shops.
is shining.
Sue's dress shop's looking nice.
Yeah.
Just say that. Everyone's got a Sue's dress shop.
Exactly.
Tracy, do you have anything to plug? Any books or lovely things we can get of yours?
I've actually started a business with 2 friends to amplify women's voices called Outspoken Women. So
Excellent.
hear us roar!
Outspoken Women. So we go to outspokenwomen.com.
That's exactly right.
I've guessed it. There you go. It's just, I'm like Darren Brown. I would like to say, I mentioned before my sister's in, my mother's in as well, and I just want to say thank you very much to my mother, because without you, I would not be here. So thank you for all the sandwiches and love. Thank you for driving me to Mrs. Leggett to drama lessons. Sadly, she's no longer with us, but happily you are. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming and raising me and all of that lovely stuff that led me here today to the Opera House. I did have a bit of a weep when I walked. It's just emotional when you get here. You don't think it's going to be, and then you just go, I'm at the Opera House. Because I came here as a child, and then you just think, it's amazing. Anyway, can I just say what a great honour it's been to be at the Sydney Opera House, and a huge thank you to all of the staff here who've been absolutely incredible. Tech, behind stage, putting all this together, getting women from all over the world to come here for this weekend. A big round of applause for everyone at the Sydney Opera House. I love that our technician is clapping. He's in the box going, I'm one of very few men. I'm giving myself a round of applause. It's been quite a tough hour for you, hasn't it, really? Yeah, he's feeling a bit sad about his tribe. Listen, it's not our fault you've got Don Burke. It's just the way the cookie crumbles. Do you know what you've also got? Better pay, mate. power and influence. I know you're thinking now, I don't have power and influence because you've got the mic, but you can turn it off at any moment. Oh, and I'm back in business. I'm not back in business. I am back in business. I'm back in business. You have been listening to The Guilty Feminist with me, Deborah Frances-White, guest co-host Myf Warhurst, and our very special guest Tracey Spicer. The producer was Tom Salinsky for the Spontaneity Shop and the Sydney Opera House. Thanks to everyone at the All About Women Festival, as well as all of you for listening. For more information about this and other episodes, visit guiltyfeminist.com. If you listen to the podcast at home, just give us a cheer if you don't know what you're at and you now think it's a bit of a cult. You don't know what you're at? You've no idea. Why are you here? You've never heard of me. Thank you. That's very kind but blunt.
Hello there. You've heard a lot about Brexit on this podcast and the possible impact it will have on women and vulnerable people. Now, one of my very favourite straight white men, Guilty Feminist producer and my husband, Tom Salinsky, has co-written and directed a very funny satirical play about it. It's called Brexit and it stars Timothy Bentinck, who you might know from The Archers, with Mike McShane, Hal Cruttenden, Pippa Evans and Joe Caulfield. Incredible comedy names and Edinburgh stars. I've seen a preview and it really is wonderful stuff, funny, biting, and the cast is fantastic. You can get tickets now for the Edinburgh Fringe run in August by going to brexitplay.co.uk. And if you use the code GuiltFemPod, you can get £2 off your ticket. If you won't be in Edinburgh in August, but you are in London, you can get tickets now for the 2 London previews on the 27th and 28th of July. Once again, go to brexitplay.co.uk for tickets.